I decided to not go into Photoshop. Let's just do this all inside of Substance Painter. So we really want to make this to feel like this is all one object. So when we do the fall off or the roughness changes and the depth of that, it feels like it's going across the whole thing. Maybe the sticker was varnished on there, but really next week I'll show you how we would do this independent. So we could have the sticker have its own roughness and highlight map instead of trying to feed with each other. So this is where we were last week, or this is where we were on Friday. And what I want to do is get it to feel some inconsistency or some varnish wear off or something like that. Rather than just do one layer though, what you want to have is some complexity with what you're doing. And this is just for the roughness stuff, believe it or not. This is the kind of detail you need to think about. You need to think about how many layers it went through or how many coats of varnish since they put it on and stuff like that. And this will give us a little bit of belief to that. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this layer real quick just by Alt and dragging it. I'm going to put the new one underneath. I'm going to call this base varnish. And then I'm going to hide this layer on top real quick, which I've named flat base, and then the whole folder is super varnish. And the difference between flat varnish or base varnish and this is I'm going to take this roughness off the map altogether, like that. And then I'm going to turn the flatness up, but I'm not going to turn it up as high as it is below. So if I turn this up, you see it's a little bit sharper. I'm going to do it a little bit more stark because when we get to this one it's even flatter, right? What I want to be able to do is have a couple of different types of this going into the table. So we're going to pull it over here like this just to get a good look at it here. And then I'm going to put a mask on it, and one of those smart masks, and I'll open up the smart mask by clicking here and then dragging this down to the bottom. There we go. And there's a few things we could use, but what we're going to use for this bottom one is we're going to use surface worn, and we're just going to throw that onto this layer right there. Sometimes when you do this, it may not look like there's much going on, and that may be because our base layer doesn't have enough contrast to it. So I'm going to turn this up a little bit so we can see what it looks like. So this is even actually flatter than the one above it. I'm going to turn this down a little bit just to get some of that. And then I'm going to come to this. And when I click on this, what it does is it opens up the mask editor option. This doesn't show up until I click on it. So I'm going to click on this. And when I click on this, it's going to allow me to see what all the settings are for this material or this mask are. So I can turn this down and change it, how it looks. I can invert it, which would probably be interesting. I'm not sure if that's really what we want. I can turn up the contrast so it's a little bit starker. It's just making the black and white map stronger or softer. And I'm not sure if I like that either, so it's a little softer right there. I want to do the curvature. I'm going to probably do this a little bit, and then I'm just messing with the positions of some of the things. And the real thing I'm trying to do is get it set up so when I add the next part, it'll be a little bit different. So if I go back to the material, we could even add like a height here too to make it feel like there's something pushing up. To do that, we just go into the height and we push it up a little bit. And see, as I do that, it pushes it. Maybe I go down a little bit. We just want the slightest amount though. We don't want a lot. We just want to break it up based on the map or the mask that's above it. So we're basically pushing this up. And we'll talk more about how you do this and what this is doing in further ones, but we just basically pushed it up, so now we've got this kind of broken up surface. Now we turn on the other one and all of a sudden that's gone, right? Everything but maybe the dirt stuff or the height map stuff. Well, with this one, we're going to put on oxidation and throw that on there. And this gives me some breakthroughs. You can see that this area is what's shining through. If I turn this off, it's even shinier because that's what it's showing me all the way down, but this is now I've got some subtleties, and probably what I want to do with this one is go to the mask editor and maybe make it a lot more subtle. Maybe pull this texture back a little bit. Maybe pull this texture back a little bit. Let's try turning the balance down so we get more of this. Let's see. See, that's almost none now, so that doesn't work. Maybe I don't want global, maybe I don't want oxidation, but maybe oxidation is better for the bottom one, so I have these subtle marks. But you get the general idea, and I'll let you decide how best you want to sit this in here. Also, we can just invert it, right? There's an invert, and if we turn that off, we have this, and then if we turn that back on, we got this second feel to our oxidation. Now, the big problem we have here is this, and this is what we're going to talk about next week, and how to just bring in something like a stamp or a stencil and use that on any object instead of doing it the way I did it in just embedding it into the texture. You don't really have control over this stuff too. Well, we'll talk about making this even a little bit more readable. I mean, it's still cartoony, but now we've got some realistic touches to it. And there's a lot of games that are doing that kind of stuff now, so they keep it cartoony, but then add some secondary reflective pieces to it to make it feel more intricate without taking away from the cartoony most of the time. So that's all I'm expecting, is to have a couple more layers, name them well, mess with that, play with it, have fun.